Yinspired is dedicated to all the grandmothers and aunties whose voices weren't heard or listened to. Created for the daughters. This podcast is for entertainment, education, and inspirational purposes only. Nothing in this podcast is diagnostic or direct medical advice and does not establish a practitioner-patient relationship. Seek care from a highly trained medical provider for your healthcare concerns. Welcome back to Yinspired, a podcast celebrating different perspectives in Chinese medicine and integrative medicine. Here we have casual conversations with everyday practitioners, patients, and students exploring the messy truths of medicine, healing, the taboo in life. I'm your host, Dr. Haunani Chong-Drake, a clinical doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine, a licensed acupuncturist in the United States, a cultural practitioner and steward, mom, dog mama, and military spouse. Welcome to Season 2 of Yinspired, and happy 2026. Happy New Year, Yinspired listeners. The more I follow the lunar and solar calendar from the East Asian perspective, I'm drawn to the cycle of the new year being in alignment with spring and the beginning of spring. And so happy New Year. We are officially in spring. I'm recording this on February 7th. My very spotty memory, if it serves me correctly, we entered spring on a Wednesday. Yes, Wednesday, Li Shun, was February 4th. And this solar event is the official beginning of spring on the solar calendar, and this stays the same every year. For those of you who practice feng shui, you know this, we use February 4th as the beginning of the new year. And this is different from the Lunar New Year's, or sometimes called Chinese New Year's or Spring Festival. That fluctuates around usually mid-February, but it's not always the case. But officially, we are in spring. February 4th, 2026 was the first day of spring. As we got closer to the new year, it occurred to me, you know what? I think I'm going to do a solo episode. I think I want to start season 2 with just me. This is not the focus of this podcast typically. I do feel more comfortable interviewing guests, but it has been a year since I launched Yinspired. For those of you who are newer or have not listened to the first episode, I encourage you to do so. Just so you know, I launched Yinspired at this time last year, at the beginning of the year of the wood snake in 2025. Side note, in a recent podcast, I said we were coming out of the water snake year in 2025. Correction, I should have said wood snake. And now here we are at the beginning of spring in 2026, and we are moving into the fire horse year. So this episode is to give you some insights to what is coming up this season in Yinspired, how Yinspired might grow and change just a little bit, and also to reflect on the state of the world, the anxiety and the urgency of the world through a yin-yang perspective, and how this is reflecting in healthcare and the profession of Chinese medicine and acupuncture at large. I have a feeling this episode could and will ruffle some feathers, but more importantly, I've been asked by some close friends to share this perspective on Yinspired since they found it helpful and insightful. So I do offer today's conversation with a lot of vulnerability. You probably can hear the shaking in my voice, and also a lot of love. I want you to know that I truly believe we, yes, all of us, all 8.5 billion of us, are on one big healing journey. And one big healing journey together. So I want to start with a year in review for Yinspired and how Yinspired might be evolving in 2026. First off, I want to say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If you're listening, that means the world to me. Your emails and messages always bring a smile to my face. Even the messages that are less than kind, although I request for kind communication, if they are less than kind, I am still grateful. It means you care enough to share some of your precious chi, your time and energy with me. And while Yinspired is still a personal project with no funding except out of my own time, Force and pocketbook, bringing Yinspired into this world and at this time feels deeply guided. So thank you for your support, and I will continue to share, even when I'm shaking and being told to shut up. For new listeners, I really invite you to listen to episode 1 to get a sense of the history and the why behind Yinspired. What I want to share as we enter season 2 that I wouldn't have guessed when birthing this into the world is I love podcasting. I love it. I was terrified of the technical side of podcasting, having never done anything like this before. And I realized with every conversation I had, this fills my cup. Not a single aspect of podcasting has felt obligatory, annoying, or frustrating. Okay, take that back. I did have 2 recorded episodes with 2 incredible people. Shout out to Dr. Josh Green and Dr. Sam Buchanan. And the recordings just didn't turn out. It didn't record half of the conversation, so I couldn't release it. Okay, those are frustrating moments. And I hope I can catch up to those 2 beautiful practitioners for season 2. My intuition, that wise voice within, has continued to grow louder and stronger during this process, as well as my healing path, my forgiveness and acceptance of so much of life, recognizing this is not about perfection, but it's about connection. As we enter season 2, I want to share that the guests and conversations you'll hear from in season 2 are probably going to be even more edgy, more conversations about mindset as a healthcare practitioner. What is the role of a healer in 2026? What is integrative medicine, and what role does cultural healing practices play in that emerging healthcare system without losing its spirit? Conversations about racism in medicine and wellness culture, and more conversations bridging the spiritual and ancestral sides of medicine into our current dominant healthcare system. With this said, when Yinspired was being born, I wrote down a list of over 50 incredible people who were my dream guests. Now, I know podcasts are not for everyone, but I really thought a casual conversation would be something these guests would be interested in. Truth be told, what I found is a lot of people do not want to be on podcasts. And this is shocking for me, and at the same time, I'm not surprised. However, especially when it's someone I've had an incredible life-changing conversation with, and I want to share their wisdom, their perspective with the world so much, I've learned I've had to put my ego's desires aside. Because of course, I'm never going to force anyone to be a guest. And so I have learned inviting guests is much more of an organic process than I initially realized. While I have an exciting lineup of conversations for 2026 in the Year of the Horse, I also want to extend an invitation. If you are listening, if you are interested in having a conversation on Yinspired, or know someone who would be open to sharing their heart, perspective, and wisdom with me, please send me an email. I'd love to hear from you. And in general, I'd love to hear from you. What do you like about Yinspired? What don't you like? What topics do you want me to spend more time on? Do you have any requests? To send me an email, head over to yinspiredpod.com, yinspiredpod.com, and send me an email. Okay, now that's updates. Updates are done. Now I want to move into a more reflective space about the current state of the world, what the Fire Horse Year means, and how this all plays into what I'm seeing in the healthcare field, Chinese medicine, and acupuncture. It is still very vulnerable for me to share my voice and opinions with the world. Honestly, I prefer to chat with guests. I also am feeling deeply guided, and I'm trusting my intuition today even more by speaking up when it seems like the world is asking me to just be a model minority or shut up once again. So here goes. If you've been listening, you know almost every conversation comes back to the dynamic relationship of yin and yang, how our personal lives reflect the collective and vice versa. We also known or talked about as the microcosm, macrocosm perspective, or honoring that we live in a fractal universe. Also, the idea of the interdependent relationship between personal and collective healing. It's inseparable. Obviously, I can't claim to understand the greater purpose or know why the world feels so urgent, so anxious, and so upsetting right now. But all I can say is I feel it too. I see it and I hear it. Today, I'd like to share with you some perspectives I have about where we are, how we got here, and specifically how practicing cultural-based medicine or healing practices in 2026 in the United States plays a role in the bigger picture of what's going on at the moment. It's all connected. I can't have a day where I'm not having a conversation with someone telling me about how anxious they're feeling, or I'm having anxiety. And there is a palpable urgency to this moment. So from a yin-yang perspective, what the fuck is going on? Is there something larger at play? And what is my role in it? How is this reflecting on healing and medicine at large? And what have I witnessed? in the Chinese medicine and acupuncture profession through all of it. Again, this is all my opinion and all my perspective, so please take that with discernment. Recently, I have found the phrase, quoted by Dan Harris, a business mindfulness teacher and former news icon, to be so very true and helpful at the moment. And that quote is, action absorbs anxiety. While I would not have identified as an anxious person growing up, I would have just identified myself as a type A personality. Through decades of healing, including recognizing the stories I've been telling myself or gaslighting myself and keeping me in deep patterns of suffering, I do experience anxiety and panic attacks. Again, part of this could also be hormonal shifts, very true, and I'm feeling the sense of urgency and anxiety as well. No amount of yoga, deep breathing, long walks in nature, acupuncture, therapy with my amazing IFS therapist make me immune to life. Yes, they are helping. They help a lot. And for moments, hours, sometimes even a whole day, I find my nervous system regulated. I'm able to have perspective and peace. And some days I wake in pure anxiety and I can't shake it. What I have found that if I just allow the anxiety to keep going, it will eventually win and cripple me. What I have found that when I take action towards something that is meaningful, even if it is still shaky and vulnerable, like this particular podcast episode, or legislation for the profession at the Capitol, or having a difficult conversation with someone I'm in relationship, that it settles the anxiety. It gives a place for the anxiety to go. And so I enter into season 2 in this fluctuating state of yin and yang. I'm with all of you. And it feels so weird to share, quote unquote, action absorbs anxiety. Because isn't that uplifting yang when this whole podcast is about tending to the yin? I've been sitting with this all month. What does it mean to tend to the yin when there is so much yang energy at the moment? The year of the fire horse is yang of yang. It is pure fire. So it all comes back to balance. And balance not as a bullseye spot on a chart. Balance as a dance, a dynamic flow. If I let the urgency, the rush, the adrenaline, the anxiety go unchecked, it burns me out, it cripples me. And I see this all the time in clinic. Adrenal fatigue, burnout, the highs and lows of recovering from burnout, and then feeling good again, and then feeling burnt out again. In so many ways, action absorbs anxiety is like a pressure relief valve. It is actually meeting the yang where it's at and giving it meaningful direction rather than letting it spiral out of control. When we choose to work with the yang energy in a way that is purposeful, meaningful, and directed towards connection or things that matter to us, this does tend to the yin. Yes, this action and work also uses yin as fuel, and it's all about balance. And while wellness culture will make you think if you just do one more thing in the name of quote unquote self-care, you'll feel better, I can tell you a lot of wellness culture is designed to make you become so self-centered, not in a spiritualized way, but so self-centered, so self-absorbed that you are going to lose sight of the big picture. If your self-care, quote unquote self-care, is making you more anxious, it's not truly self-care. Take a moment, step back, and consider, how can I filter this yang energy, this action, moving energy that is all around me in the yang fire horse year for the good of the realm, for the people in my community? How can I direct it to be of service to someone or something else, to step away from the me and reunite with the we? Remember, it's all about balance. Some of you have given. You've given so much you're empty. Some of you have been so focused on your inward journey that you've lost touch with how you're going to give back and share your gifts and wisdom with the world. Just thinking about what you wish or want to do is going to make the yang energy build up until you make yourself go crazy. That is the nature of yin and yang. Yang needs direction. You need to take action to move the needle towards your own balance and healing for you and your community. Personally, for me, sharing my voice with you via Yinspired, getting involved in the Acupuncture State Professional Board, which has led to policy, advocacy, and legislative work in Richmond, our state's capital. Believe me, I did not see that one coming. But to speak up and use my voice, yes, it is incredibly vulnerable for me. However, even if no one is listening, even when I'm made fun of or hated on, it has become my way of absorbing the anxiety. When I'm shaking, I am learning to feel and hear the shake and still stand tall in my chi field and say, thank you. I also get to have a say. And that is meaningful. That is healing. In the end, it makes me feel better, even if it was so vulnerable, shaky, and terrifying. Like so many aspects of preventative medicine or the things we know we should do to sustain our health, but we don't necessarily want to do it, but we know if we do it, we'll feel better. That's where I'd like us to consider how we can take action to channel this yang energy, to be of service to others, to be of service to yourself that will absorb the anxiety, give it direction. Remember, it's balance. So if action does absorb anxiety, what is your action? Today's conversation is going to be one way I'm taking action to dissipate some of the anxiety I'm seeing around the healthcare system, around the profession of Chinese medicine and acupuncture, and the intraprofessional and interprofessional infighting I'm seeing day to day. I'm not sure if anyone else cares about this, but it does to me. So I'm going to put it out there to the world. I do know that every time I hit record, something happens to me where I feel a little less alone. And maybe today's episode, the first episode of season 2, at this springtime, at the new year, at the beginning of the fire horse year, maybe it will help you feel the same way too, a little less alone. So where can some of this anxious, urgent energy be coming from? Clearly, the state of the world, economics, politics, wars, you name it, if you are human on this planet, it's impossible to avoid. But let's bring some bigger picture perspective to this current energy. If we look at astrology, especially the Chinese astrology calendar, we can find a lot of answers. I love using astrology, but to be honest, I am not versed in it. I have studied it, but it is something that goes in one ear and out the other. So I am going to point you to other resources and references, which I will put in the show note. One of the things I do want everyone to know is we are in the year of the fire horse. This means we are in yang of yang energy, double yang year. And we need to read what we are seeing online and in forums with discernment, with a grain of salt. Because keep in mind, the fire horse year, that energy, that chi is going to interact with your own personal chart and astrology differently. So in some ways, when we hear this is a very yang year, right? Yang of yang, fire on fire, this is very general advice about the year. We need to look at how your personal chart aligns with this energy of the fire horse year. It might mean something totally different for you. So again, I'll put some resources in the show notes, but I just want to put that out there. Yes, this is a very yang year. Think of it as being a summer energy, summer all year long from February 2026 until January 2027. As you can imagine, if you already have a lot of fire in your chart or personality, this is going to be like putting gasoline on that fire. For others who find summer to be balancing to their very watery or earthy constitution, this added yang energy might be just what you need to feel more energized or balanced. It's going to look different for each of us. We also have to keep in mind the energy of the horse. A horse is a very intuitive animal. So intuition is going to play a significant role in how this energy is used, directed, and also asking us to tune into that intuition like a horse. For some of us, that sounds very confrontational and very uncomfortable. And for others of us, it is the permission we've been looking for a long time to lean into that intuition, to that steadiness that brings you like a steady horse. At the beginning of February 2026, I think this is just such a reflective time for so many of us, given the anxiety, the worry, Actually, I'm seeing all the emotions. It's almost like all the emotions are heightened right now. But the word that keeps coming up when I get really still and when I step out of my own emotional charges and reflect at a macro level is, what are the repeating patterns here? What is the repeating pattern? And the repeating pattern I see is discordance, a disharmony, being out of alignment. And with this is also an awakening that is happening. The awakening is recognizing in all the ways we have been drinking a certain punch to follow certain patterns, behaviors, and beliefs that we're realizing maybe I'm not in alignment with this anymore. This is a period of reckoning. It's really a true time of reckoning where the veils are being lifted and the truth, the capital T truths, are being revealed. But in this process, we're recognizing that so many of those capital T truths we were leaning into are actually lowercase t truths. And that is very, very hard. That presents very challenging times, especially if you thought 2020 was the one and done year of getting the hard stuff out of the way. As Lillian Bridges, a beloved teacher by so many of us in the Chinese medicine world, told us in 2021, she told us, quote unquote, hold on tight. This is just the beginning. Bless her heart. Was she ever so correct? So when life, the external world, touches our personal world and pulls at our heartstrings like this so often and so frequently, it shows us how we've become so disconnected and in discordance with the nature of things, the natural rhythms. It is going to force us into a reevaluation and reckoning with what is. And my hope is that this is all leading to our healing. Like I said at the beginning, I truly believe every single person on this planet is on a healing journey. And sometimes we got to be pushed just a little bit more to come back into that journey, into that path of healing together. We're all on different journeys. We're here for different reasons. Our healing journeys are going to take different times. It's going to look different, but there are as many ways towards healing as there are people on this planet. To make amends is a phrase that feels in alignment with my heart when I think about reckoning and healing the heart and this process we're going through globally and personally. Having grown up in a Hawaiian community, in a Hawaiian culture, the term we use is ho'oponopono. And I'm very cautious to even bring that term up in this format because, like so many other cultural traditions, it has been misused. It is cherry-picked, it is appropriated, and it's misused. It's misdefined. However, I will keep coming back to this idea of making amends and to make right. Not right in terms of right and wrong, but to make right, meaning to make amends, to come back into alignment with your soul, all your parts, in your relationship to the earth, to the planet, to your family, to the people all around you. It's not just about making amends personally. It's a process of realignment at the personal, individual realignment and making amends at all levels because it's inseparable. As above, so below. We are inseparable, right? It's the micro and macro cosm at play. So I recognize as I move through today's reflections, again, I may ruffle feathers, and it's okay. Growth happens not in comfort, it happens in discomfort. And for someone who is a recovering people pleaser, as a coping mechanism that served me very well through most of my life until I couldn't be in alignment with it anymore, and I'm still working on it, I truly know that growth doesn't happen in comfort and people pleasing. It happens in discomfort. And so at a time like this, when there is so much discomfort, not only being fed to us, but the veils are being lifted and we realize we're sitting in our own discomfort in so many different ways. This is an opportunity for healing, for realignment, an opportunity to make amends, an opportunity to become more alive rather than escape and to want to not be here, which are natural reactions because the human psyche wants to avoid discomfort and avoid pain and avoid patterns of pain and discomfort. We also have to remember that wanting to avoid the pain and discomfort is a pattern itself. And so we are being asked to rewire We have to make amends, not just at the mind level, not just at the physical nervous system level, but at the heart level, at the deep spiritual heart level of consciousness, of our beliefs, of who we are. And from there, we begin to move in alignment with what your soul, what my soul, what our soul is meant to be doing here on this planet at this time. I keep hearing people refer to the Buddhist quote, life is suffering. It makes sense, especially right now. It seems appropriate. But again, that phrase, life is suffering, is misinterpreted. From my understanding in my studies, the word suffering, that Buddhist quote, comes from the translation of the word dukkha. And dukkha means stuckness. It's stuckness from being out of alignment or out of resonance with nature. So if we just limit that word to suffering and take it at face value without understanding the heart and the true depth of that teaching, yes, life will have suffering. But suffering means to be out of alignment. Dukkha is getting stuck and then just accepting stuckness as your only path. When that's not true, that's not the teaching. Yes, there will be suffering. Yes, there will be stuckness. That is part of the human experience. But we need to do some self-reflection and understand our place in this moment and the stuckness, this alignment or out of alignment. We have to get real with it. We have to get truthy with ourselves. And only you can know that for yourself, where you are in and out of alignment. No one can do that for you. I can't do that for you. Your therapist can't do that for you. Your acupuncturist can't do that for you. They can do it on some levels, but only each of us individually truly can be the most truthful with ourselves and get to the root, right? People can hold a mirror up to us and help show us where we might be lying to ourselves, where we have our blocks, where we have our hurdles, how our patterns are informing our behavior, thoughts, beliefs, and actions. But ultimately, this path of reconciliation, of making amends, takes deep desire to reduce your own and everyone's suffering. I want to share a practice I've been going through recently that is hard, but I want to share it with you anyway. It's a question I've been asking myself. And the question is, if this is the state of the world that we're experiencing right now with so much tension and wars and cruelty, and also recognizing this is human pattern across all of history. But if this is state of the world for the rest of my life, it is as bad as it is right now, and it's going to stay that way or get worse. What is my role in that? I want you to ask yourself this. If this is life as we know it from now on, what is your role on this planet? What does it mean to be alive? If you're listening to Yinspired, I can guess you were part of the role of being a helper, to be the friendly neighbor, to be a healer. Now, healer doesn't necessarily mean you're fixing people, curing people. It just means you care enough to reduce suffering. You might be a visionary or a wayfinder, navigating nature of the past to make sense for a more balanced and aligned future. You might have gifts that no one else understands, but they come to you so easily. You might have mystical aspects of yourself that no one, not even your family or closest friends, know about. Maybe you already know your role. So what do we do with all this? What do we do with it at a time like this? From my perspective, and to share what that wise voice within me has been yelling at me for years, it's been yelling at me, it's time to rise. The time is now. It's time to come out of my proverbial closet as a healer. We need all healers on deck. We need all healers to rise and stand together to reduce suffering. We are in a time of great remembering as much as a time of reconciliation, and that takes all its healers to be on deck. It's a time to see each other and remember we need all the helpers, all the healers, and all their preferred ways of doing their work to come together. The infighting, the stealing of practices, the pointing of fingers that's happening at large and inside healing professions, it's not helping. All the helpers, all the healers, we must continue to do the work, the path less taken, to heal ourselves. We're not immune to it just because we have fancy certifications, degrees, power, authority, or money. For me, I am more clear than ever before that I am here in service of Chinese medicine and as a healer. Not as a healer that necessarily fixes or cures people, but as an archetype. It's what my inner guide, my soul, my spirit is here to do on this planet at this time in this lifetime. And I get to do it through these really beautiful cultural practices that have been shared with me. And I have been a sponge and a vessel for them. A lot of what I'm sharing with you today is going to get very personal. I'm still shaking. I'm still vulnerable, but it's starting to feel a little more comfortable the more I share. I also want to point out that a lot of what I'm about to talk about and move into goes back to an episode I shared on Yinspired called Beyond Cultural Appreciation. It was episode 9, and again, I'll put it in the show notes. But really, the whole premise of that podcast, episode 9, if you haven't listened, is about this idea of cultural stewardship. So I recommend, if you haven't listened to that episode, to do so after today, or maybe pause now and go back and listen to that. And while I'm going to primarily speak about Chinese medicine and acupuncture profession right now, I do know much of what I'm sharing is a direct mirror reflection of what I have seen, what I currently see, what I learned, what I witnessed and experienced in many decades within the wellness culture at large, not just in the US, but around the globe, especially when I was very dedicated and very active in the yoga and Ayurveda communities. And it's what I continue to see happening in integrative healthcare in America at this time. When I think of the patterns I'm seeing repeated again and again, this discordance, this veils being lifted, this opportunity for reconciliation, it always brings me back to the idea of the microcosm and macrocosm reflection, as above, so below. So even though I might be speaking primarily at some points about the Chinese medicine and acupuncture profession in the United States specifically, I truly believe these conversations really are for all of us in medicine, healing, and the wellness industry. Maybe not the entirety of the conversation applies to you, but my hope is by me sharing openly, very vulnerably, that it might shed light in your own personal or professional situation, because I truly believe we are all in this together. Why I want to share this now at the new year, at the onset of season 2 for Yinspired, is because springtime is the time of yang energy. The fire is emerging out of the water, out of the yin, out of winter, and it's birthing. We can see this time as a rebirth. It's this upward movement of yang energy that propels us and gives us energy that we might not have had over the last 3 to 6 months. Since autumn of 2025, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, the yin energy was sinking into our lives, and that was the dominant quality around us. So now in the springtime, this is the best time to take all of those reflections from times that we've been sitting and contemplating and learning and reading during the cozy fall and winter months and bring that into action. The springtime is the time where we can start to put things into action. This is the time where quote unquote New Year's resolutions can start with momentum. If you're starting a new project or you're feeling a shift of priorities, it's because we finally have this yang energy to propel us like a rising sun, giving new light and heat to these ideas that have been stewing for a while. So my reflection at this time of the year really is about the idea of reconciliation and making amends personally, collectively, and globally. A little background. Since I was a child, it has been very clear to me that our current or dominant healthcare system in the United States has had huge gaps. Through my own undiagnosable health challenges and being dismissed by healthcare providers and doctors, ones I looked up to so much, I desired, wanted, and dreamed of being like them, it also forced me to begin to desire, want, and dream of other options in healthcare that I wasn't being offered. And this is a big reason why I chose the path less taken, away from the dominant healthcare system in the United States. It's not that I didn't like it. I love it. I love all medicines. But I had a choice to be part of the dominant healthcare system or find ways to fill the gaps. I chose the path less taken. I chose the more rebellious path, the most unknown path. I took this path into Chinese medicine that was in alignment with who I was as a person and what I was looking for in terms of solutions. They were in alignment. Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, yoga, these holistic practices were not only in alignment with how I perceived and make sense of the world through nature and ecology, but really they made sense at a spiritual level, at something even deeper that's hard to put words to. These paths, they brought me back to myself. I also see them as solutions to the massive gaps in healthcare. These are practices that I could get behind, and so I did. The current dominant healthcare system in the United States is struggling in so many ways, and it is going through its own reconciliation. We've seen this especially since 2020. But if we look at the dominant healthcare system, its foundations was really only founded in the early 1900s. Barely enough time has passed for this realization of what are its strengths and what are its weaknesses. A system that has been touted to be the one, the savior for all of us, is failing so many people. There are so many gaps. And I truly know in my heart of heart, Chinese medicine can help fill those gaps, make it stronger, more culturally inclusive, providing options for more people and make it more accessible. I mean, the cost effectiveness of Chinese medicine alone is unbelievable. I mean, we'll probably have to do a whole episode just on that. I'm not saying Chinese medicine is perfect, right? There are so many gaps. We need all the medicines that are out there that are effective and accessible to rise and to be part of the solution. After all, there's no medicine that is 100% effective for 100% of the people. But what I do know is through my studies and dedication to Chinese medicine, it has many options that are not available in the current dominant healthcare system. And to be clear, I am not a proponent for making Chinese medicine mold and bend and change to be more like allopathic medicine. For those of you who are familiar with the art form of kintsugi, the mending and putting together of pottery, this is my personal creative art. I love it. I practice it. It's what I'll be doing until I die. Same with Chinese medicine. It's the art of repairing ceramics with a natural sap that, when done properly, fills gaps and fills cracks and puts ceramic back together, actually making it stronger than it was before. And from this perspective, I truly see Chinese medicine in the same way. This medicine of the past is the medicine for the future. Chinese medicine has a hidden, buried, and untold story in the United States that is also going through its own reconciliation process as well. And if you are in the Chinese medicine world, what is your role in this reconciliation? Do you see it as a gift to be of service to Chinese medicine? I do. Not only to the medicine itself, but to all those before me who preserved it, even through wars, torture, immigration, politics. I am in deep honor to the past and to my ancestors who struggled and worked so hard. Without them, we wouldn't be where we are today with this medicine. Part of bringing Yinspired to the public has ushered me into a deep healing process, a place in inner knowing where I am more at ease, more proud, more alignment with my Asian background than I have ever been in my life before. And it is such a blessing. It brings me so much peace to be able to accept all my parts rather than only the parts that are going to be accepted by others. One of the things I brought up in the very first episode was this idea of a bodhisattva's vow, the idea that some beings come back to the planet time and time and time again because they have committed this vow to reducing the suffering of all beings everywhere. And I feel a strong calling to that vow. The bodhisattva vow lives deep in my bones and has been whispering to me for as long as I can remember. Now, I wouldn't have called it that growing up because I just didn't have the words, the language, or paradigm view to call it such. But the minute I learned about the bodhisattva vow and read about it, I lit up in a way that I knew I was onto something. My heart, my spirit was coming back to its calling. So when I say, I know that my archetype here on this planet at this type is that of a healer, it's not that I do the healing. Yes, I get to do clinical work, and to me that is very meaningful. I get to work and be in connection with people's lives, but I'm also very aware that the archetype of a healer is just someone who cares deeply and wants to help, who wants to reduce suffering, who wants to bring alignment back onto this planet. I'm asking myself these days, what would medicine look like if it was more inclusive of all the different cultural medicine practices that are alive today without needing to give it an acceptable name deemed by the dominant medical system, right? We know the healthcare system is one of the major quote unquote systems that has tremendous effect on our livelihood, our physical livelihood, our emotional livelihood, our mental livelihood, our spiritual livelihood, and our interactions with each other. So what would it look like if medicine was inclusive of all the different cultural practices without needing to rename it, to rebrand it? Like so many of you listening, I have a dream that acupuncture and Chinese medicine are seen as an equal option in our healthcare system, but without needing to lose its center. I have a dream that there are many acupuncture and Chinese medicine practitioners in every city as there are coffee shops. Can you imagine that? That our healthcare system would be about prevention and actual healthcare, not sick care. And for all of you practitioners out there, I have a dream that if you practice a form of medicine outside of the dominant healthcare system in the United States, my dream is that we can stand tall in our spines, stand tall and be proud of these paths that have either called us into it or you felt called to steward and to be in practice with it. That's my dream. That's my vision. What's yours? I do not envision a world in which our cultural medicines are reduced to making them acceptable or palatable for the system. I truly believe the medicines of the past are the medicines for the future. Cultural medicines and practices shared and brought to the United States by a lot of immigrants or the Native American medicine that exists today and of the past, despite being deeply othered, made fun of, excluded, cherry-picked, and destroyed. These are the medicines that will fill the gap and make healthcare stronger for all of us. I want to honor all of the indigenous practices around the world that have been colonized, that have been destroyed, that have tried to be destroyed, and yet they still persist. During this time and this process of remembering and reconciliation, we have a lot to learn from people and cultures who have been colonized. In fact, at a time like now, if you want to know how to survive, how to make get through the unbearably tough times physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, you turn and humbly listen to the people who have always been othered, who have been put aside, who have been disenfranchised, who have been the unpopular opinion. There is wisdom in those people, in their resilience, in their practices. This is the time to make amends personally and collectively in order to come back into alignment, to reduce suffering in this world, to be a helper, to be called into helping others with their physical, mental, emotional, energetic, or spiritual nature. We, all of us healers, helpers, visionaries, also are being called to do our own healing and reconciliation at this time. Yes, even if you've been doing it for decades, we are not done, people. Maybe you are. But for me, I know I'm being called to a deeper and deeper layer of healing. Things I thought I had already mended, nope. There's more. With my history of being othering and gaslighting myself, a history of sexual abuse and harassment, and also having a ton of privilege to piggyback on my proximity to the dominant culture and patriarchy in the United States, believe me, I have plenty of stuff to work with. I too know that it is so easy to wish things were different. It is so easy to wish things to be different, especially if you're a visionary, especially if you're a dreamer, especially if you're a healer. I think so many of us come to this life with so much wisdom, having seen cultures and ways and times that operate differently. That wisdom, it can't help but come through you in this life. And so it's so frustrating when you're like, wait a minute, but it's so easy if we just did this, right? Fill in the gap of the fix, of bringing the world back into harmony and balance. Harmony would be so much easier if we just did this. You bring that from a different time and place that makes sense in your bones. It makes sense in your spirit. It's part of your blueprint. And yet, here we are in 2026. What are we going to do with that? What are you going to do with that wisdom? We also know the path of the healer and healing is not all about love, light, laughter, and the feel good. In order to heal, in order to feel in alignment, in order to let go of those coats that you put on or someone put on you, to purge all those punches you've been drinking, to keep you blind, to keep you going in the same direction, there is going to be a lot of pain, a lot of anger, a lot of emotion, a lot of darkness, a lot of screaming, a lot of discomfort, right? This is not about change. Change is easy. Change is like changing your clothes. Take one outfit on, put another outfit, take one outfit off, put another outfit on, but that's not lasting. Okay? Change is easy. Transformation, that is a journey. Transformation is healing. Transformation is lasting, creating a new blueprint of sorts. And it is not linear. I have this great image. I saved it when my son was about 2 years old. He was drawing. I forget what he was drawing. I think he was drawing a picture of the planet. and it was just scribbles everywhere. And I remember looking at it, and the first thought I had was the healing path. And that's what it's like. This is not linear. There is not one way to do this. And because of that, we need all of the wisdom to rise, to come together, to work together. Transformation and deep healing, reckoning, making amends, ho'oponopono. It's not just about reciting something and doing an action to cross off your to-do list or to sugarcoat your life into goodness. Transformation is the messy, hard work of self-reflection, self-contemplation, living in alignment with values that you apply to all areas of your life, not just the convenient ones. It's to devote yourself to the healing of others. It's a path and commitment to deep healing work of the self. It's a journey. It is lifelong. It is lifetimes long. And here we are right now in 2026. I think if you're listening, you're probably really resonating a lot with what I've said, maybe disagreeing. Maybe you've had to pause it a few times to just sit in, breathe, take it in. I want to remind us all at a time like this, it's so easy to be in one of our sympathetic responses, of fight, of flee, of freeze, of fainting or fawning, or people pleasing. But we have to understand, what is our pattern? What is our response? What is your response? We need to know ourselves. We really need to get truthy with ourselves. Where am I? What reaction am I in, right? And it's not about shame or guilt. It's just about getting clarity. Instead of taking responsibility for the roles we've played in this place in our human evolution, instead of getting truthy with ourselves, what I'm seeing is a lot of finger pointing, a lot of hateful speech about each other and towards each other, between professions and among professionals. The thing is, in doing so, we end up repeating patterns within healthcare, within our own professions, that claim to be healing or wise or somehow helpful. But are we? When we are triggered and acting from a place of protection or emotions, we are acting in a pattern of defense, and we often repeat patterns with ourselves, with others, with different groups. What good is this finger pointing? I mean, I know it's natural to do, it's a protection mechanism, but what do we get out of it? A bolstering ego for a hit of dopamine or adrenaline? In the end, we're giving our own heart a paper cut. Those tiny paper cuts add up. If you practice Chinese medicine, if you practice a cultural medicine that understand that there's a root of everything, like the root of a tree, root of a flower, and you attempt to get to the root of a condition or an illness, the idea being once you get to the root of a situation, you can really see the path forward and what the next baby step forward will be towards healing, towards transformation, towards balance. So getting to the root of our patient's disease or dis-ease or their pain or their discomfort, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual discomfort, that's how you're trained. That's how you see the world. And we even espouse this. We're so special because we get to the root. La da 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 da. But are we doing that for ourselves? Are we doing that looking at our own root patterns? Are we doing that looking at our root patterns in the profession? Not just for our patients, for each other, in our communities, in our families. It's so easy to say one thing that we're in alignment with, and we claim to see the world in a certain way. But I'm going to ask us all, and I'm part of this. It's a practice for me. I'm not saying I'm above this, nor am I saying I'm good at this, but it is a practice I am very aware of, that I see, and that I'm holding myself accountable to. And I'm asking you to join me. Can we get to the root in all areas of our life? Maybe we need to question, why is it easier in some areas of my life to get to the root, to my patient's patterns, but not to my own? Why is it hard for me then to get to the root of my family patterns, or the root of my avoidance with money, or the root of my tendencies to scream at some people and not others? A lot of us who practice whole person medicine, especially in integrative medicine, naturopathic, Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, we use this term whole person because we celebrate individualism and the idea of individualized medicine. We market and are proud that we are able to offer individualized solutions. And yet, there are interprofessional and intraprofessional turf wars over whose version of the medicine is better. This is in complete contradiction to this individualized system and celebrating the individual, right? As practitioners, we often cheer on our patients to find their authentic expression, to find their authentic expression in their body, and to find peace and celebration in their body and their expression of chi or prana. And yet, as practitioners, Why are we trying to fit into boxes we were never meant to be in? We sometimes try to fit and mold and make cultural practices and make it fit into the dominant culture when they were never meant to be that way. They were never meant to fit in. We ourselves try to fit into boxes we were never meant to be in, right? We practice alignment-based medicine or alignment-based practices, and then we have to stop and ask the bigger question, a question I ask myself and colleagues. Alignment with what and alignment with who? Is it just our bones and our muscles? What about alignment-based medicine with nature and the cosmos and the environment? For some of us, maybe that's the easy part. You touch into spirit, the cosmos, the greater vision. Maybe that's easier for you. That's the easy work. And then for you, what about the alignment-based practices at the earthly level of ego to ego, between professions, within professions, and towards each other? Are we in alignment? Are we out of alignment? Can we see each other as individuals and celebrate each other as individuals and still be yelling at each other that someone's medicine is better than the other? I see this as a huge contradiction. Again, it's so easy and natural to point fingers at others. I do it all the time. And then stop and reflect. As we say in my household and with the kids, when we point the finger, there are three pointing back at you, right? When you point the index finger away from you, your middle, ring finger, and pinky finger are pointing back at you. And this is a great tool for self-inquiry, a mirror reflection moment to stop and take pause, to jump out of anxiety and urgency and question, what is my role in this? It's a great opportunity to remind ourselves that everything we see on the outside is happening within. Again, it's a microcosm, macrocosm reflection. When we point the finger, when we lay claim or blame at someone else being less than, we need to stop and say, where is this coming from? Where do I feel less than? That person's making me angry. Guess what? They're just being them. The question is, why am I angry? Why am I responding with anger? Right? This is a very psychologically based, self-reflection based practice of understanding. It's so easy to point the finger. It is a much harder path to hold yourself accountable and say, what is my part in this? And that is what I'm proposing to all of us. What is my part in this at this time? It seems like in healing spaces and practices, there's almost this expectation that when you move toward these healing practices, spiritually aligned practices, that somehow you're going to be able to transcend all the bullshit that pisses you off. At least that was me, and I see it all the time, but that's a lie. It's a false expectation. Right? It comes back to the macrocosm, microcosm world we live in. Everything that you see on the outside, everything that you were trying to escape from, one type of world or life you were living in, guess what? It's also going to be in this new path, in healthcare, in healing arts, in spirit, in spiritual communities. It might show itself differently, but it's still going to be there because we're a bunch of humans interacting with a bunch of humans. We're all in this together at the same time, with the same energetic planetary forces acting on us. The stew or the melting pot that you were leaving for, thinking it was all going to be roses and light and laughter and feel good. Surprise! It's also in this field. It's also in medicine. It's also in Chinese medicine, in yoga, in your spiritual community. We know practicing Chinese medicine that we live in a fractal universe, right? It's one of the paradigms of the medicine. What is above, so below. That we live between heaven and earth and that we are simply conduits for a very, very short amount of time. Yet we have to apply these principles to ourselves. It's not just something we learned. It's something that exists. It flows through us. It's asking us to be a vessel for it. And we also need to get very real, again, truthy, with the expectation that somehow Chinese medicine profession, acupuncture, integrative medicine, was going to be somehow more peaceful and harmonious and spiritual than the other world you left or were hoping to leave. Those are all expectations that are going to leave you very disappointed, especially given the painful past of a lot of the cultural medicines that are othered, made fun of, and dismissed for so long. It's really interesting being in a place that I am now, where I hear and see students and practitioners, especially around the 5-year mark, realize and voice, it's not what I thought it was going to be like. People are so mean. Everyone thinks they're right. I'm worried to say the wrong thing. I hear this again and again. You can read it on Facebook groups. This is the reality, folks. We need to have a whole conversation about expectation management. I've seen it in yoga communities, Ayurveda, massage, Chinese medicine, acupuncture. Believe me, I had the same expectations too. I also saw the expectation management come in very, very early on because I had worked with it in other areas, especially when I was in the yoga and Ayurveda community. And I guess we all have to have that realization at some point. Maybe this is my way of pouring the cold water on someone's head out there and saying, wake up. The infighting, violations, harassment, racism, colonization in medicine in the United States. It's all alive, very alive right now. Yes, there are the miracles, the feel-good days, the spirit, the moments of peace, when your patients love and adore you because you got them relief that no one else could. Yes, that is part of it too. That is part of the balance. But that's not all of it. We have to recognize and get real that how we want things to be, because you're a visionary, because you're a dreamer, because you can see the future, is not necessarily what is right now. That is the earthly work of being present, of recognizing how slow earth time moves, and to stay present, to not leave it, to stay the course you are being called to be part of, here and now, even when it gets really uncomfortable. I truly see all of us in a collective state of discomfort. The way that we practice suspending judgment for our patients when they come in with discomfort, can we start doing that for ourselves and each other, please? In order to do that, though, we have to get really truthy with ourselves again and ask and notice, where are we judging ourselves and others' professions? One real-life example of where the discomfort is really showing up in Chinese medicine and acupuncture is the cherry picking and racism of the medicine. Some people might call cherry picking scope creep. We're seeing it through all the different healthcare professions right now. And it's so easy to want to be attached and hold on and say, wait, stop, this is mine, this is mine. But truth be told, this is none of ours. If we are here to serve humanity and to reduce suffering and bring alignment back and connection back to this planet at this time, we need all the healthcare workers in all the different ways to show up with all the tools that are working. And at the same time, is there a way to integrate cultural practices into the healthcare system without needing to change their name or call them something with a more acceptable name? I know I've already asked this earlier, but I bring it up again. Can we recognize what is working and go to those trainings that offer a modality without needing to rebrand it and rename it and repackage it? Again, refer back to episode 9 when I talk about cultural appreciation and cultural appropriation and moving into cultural stewardship. Of course, turf wars happen. And in many ways, turf wars happen because we are attached. We love what we do. We believe in what we are doing so much that we're willing to go spend time and money and years invested in learning and then practicing. You're willing to fight for it. That's huge. Talk about purpose. That is amazing purpose, to be so aligned with something you're willing to fight for it. I mean, my closest friends know. I used to share it with them all the time. I'm willing to die for this medicine, right? And it wasn't until recently, just a few months ago, that I actually realized, but I don't have to die for this medicine. I'd be willing to die for the medicine, but there's a huge difference. But it shows purpose. It reminds me my why. And at the same time, I don't own Chinese medicine. I don't claim that Chinese medicine is mine or that it's the only medicine that should be practiced, that it's somehow perfect. No, I think it works incredibly well. I think it has so much to offer that the other medicines don't offer at this time, but it's just part of the puzzle. I think all medicines are amazing. And honestly, I would hope that all healthcare practitioners would recognize we need all the different types of medicine right now. There are so many gaps. We need diversity in medicine. The way that the world is more beautiful, more loving, more just, more radiant because of the diversity, that's a reflection that can shine into the healthcare field. Healthcare will be more expansive, more inclusive, more accessible, truly helping people when we can all express our medicines, when we all uplift each other. And sadly, right now, there is still a lot of plagiarism and appropriation going on in medicine. People are taking cultural practices and giving them new names and not giving credit where credit is due. My husband said this today, and it was so true. Our kids were talking to us about plagiarism and why it matters. They're learning about it at school, in middle school and in elementary school. And I just wish I could have them speak to all the healthcare practitioners out there who think they have to rebrand or call something their own. But my husband said this. He said, "You never look bad for giving credit where credit is due." And I stopped and I thought about it. And my whole being, my heart, my breath, everything just exhaled. You're right. You never look bad when you give credit where credit is due. And then we kept talking, and I reminded the kids, who ends up suffering the most when we take from other people's ideas and don't give credit where credit is due? Of course, the person you took ideas from, or the culture you took ideas from and didn't give credit to, of course that hurts them. But also because in the heart of your heart, whether you are conscious of it or not, when you take from others' work without giving credit where credit is due, you're going against your own inner wisdom, that paper cut on the heart. Everyone in the United States learns at a very young age that stealing is wrong. So as an adult, when you steal in the name of calling it rebranding, deep in your heart, there's an inner knowing. Again, you may not be aware of it, but this is how energy flows. However, when we give credit where credit is due, we uplift each other. We are acknowledging interprofessional greatness when we say, this is so good. This work over here is so good. It's so amazing. It works so well. I also want to learn it and give credit to where I learned it. That uplifts everyone. When we take cultural practices and rebrand it or mix it with something else and give it a new name and do not give credit where credit is due, that is stealing, that is appropriating, and that causes harm, not only on your heart and spirit, whether you're conscious of it or not, but on all the other people who it will ripple effect out to, especially the cultural lineages and people from which you are stealing and appropriating. We need to begin to make amends and pause to recognize, in what ways am I part of recreating patterns of harm in medicine, in healthcare, in Chinese medicine, in the healing arts that you practice. It's tricky. Healers are good people, most of them. You don't want to cause harm. You want to reduce suffering. At the same time, we have all these gaps where people are not getting adequate, bare minimum access to healthcare. We live in a multicultural country where cultural diversity in medicine is not only sought after, but it's becoming the norm. And we live in a country that elevates and uplifts products over people and procedures over respect. Again, I'm going to refer back to episode 9. So we need options. Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, plant medicine, herbal medicine, Native American medicine. We need all of them to rise right now. It's upon all of us to do so with dignity and respect. So as professionals who care deeply about our communities, how can we make amends? How do we make amends? What is my role in making amends? Again, as I already shared, if you want answers of how to make amends, of how to be in discomfort, it's not comfortable. We need to learn and listen from those who have experienced it, who have been constantly taken from, even when they were pushed aside and othered. We need to learn and listen from groups of people who are othered and not included in the American dream. Lower economic communities, rural America, Native Americans, immigrants, minorities, Black and Brown people of our communities. We need to learn and listen from those who have had to navigate these waters for hundreds of years. I never thought I'd ever get to a place in my own healing. But one thing I am embracing and reflecting on more and more these days is how grateful I am to have been treated like a minority and an outsider most of my life. I feel like it's prepared me for these times more than ever, where there are so many people around me who are like, what's going on? I didn't see this coming. How did it get so bad? In the profession of Chinese medicine, people are talking about removing any Chinese language and so it's more acceptable. It makes me want to vomit. The blatant ignorance and harm that does is so obvious to someone like me. And clearly, it's an acceptable option for others. So I've been asking people recently, how is it so shocking to you? Again, as someone who's been othered a lot in my life, being a minority, being told to be a model minority, being looked at as different and treated differently most of my life, this is coming in handy right now. I'm used to this. This is what it's like, people. This discomfort you're feeling right now as the veils are being lifted for everyone, as you're recognizing what's really going on, this is what it's like to be on the outside. It's uncomfortable. And it has been for hundreds and thousands of years for anyone who's been on the outside. Many people, if you've had access to privilege and close to dominant culture, and you're having the veils lifted right now, it feels uncomfortable. Yeah, It does. And also, welcome to the world of people who have been living this for their whole lives. My whole life has been uncomfortable because I have been treated as a minority, and sometimes I've been treated like an insider. It just depends. It's been very confusing. In Chinese medicine, or if you've stepped into cultural practices and you've never been othered, you've had that great privilege of piggybacking and cozying right up and fitting in with dominant culture, but all of a sudden you're not feeling really comfortable. You're feeling out of place, and it's very uncomfortable being othered. You can't understand why the main medical establishment isn't taking you seriously and why others are rebranding traditional medicine into a new name and lowering the standards of education and safety for not believing in what you do as medicine as if it's Santa or God. Welcome to being othered. Welcome to the dominant culture's influence on anything not part of the American dream. This is what it's like to be othered, to be part of the minority. Now, I'm not saying this to make you feel shame or guilt. There's already too much of that in the world. I share this in hopes that it brings a different perspective, maybe some clarity to the confusion or angst you feel inside choosing a path less taken. When you choose a path less taken, as most of you listeners have, you're going to come into a place of discomfort. And if you've had that lucky proximity to the dominant culture in the US, to the patriarchal system of power, and you're just starting to experience what so many of us have felt our whole lives, it's hard. It's challenging. It brings up a lot, doesn't it? And I'm also aware this is not the case for everyone practicing cultural medicine or taking the path less taken or daring to dream big and making shift happen. But if you are feeling discordance, questioning why it feels so off, this might bring some insight. What's interesting is that I also was so close to that dominant culture. I tried to piggyback on it, and I even convinced myself. I othered myself and gaslit myself that everyone saw me and gave me that same privilege. I fooled myself. I lived between worlds, leaning into that privilege, leaning into that proximity. But what hit me hard as a brick wall when I had to do my own reconciliation and waking up, you can only fool yourself so long before the veils lift. And I feel like that's where so many of us are right now. The veils are being lifted. Now, I've had many years of recognizing and looking at the truth of my life rather than my own gaslighting. And what I see now, especially in Chinese medicine and the field of acupuncture and other cultural practice medicines, is a lot of people have had a lot of access to privilege and dominant culture, and then they chose the rebel path. They chose the path less taken, and then it got really uncomfortable. And you enter the same patterns you've built your whole life, or you hope and you depend on your patterns, which used to help you, but you're in a different system now. You can't just point the finger and have someone or something else fix it for you. That used to work. People used to listen to you. But now you've taken the path less taken, and people don't listen to you the same way. They don't listen to you because now you're in the minority group. You're on the outside, and it feels like you're banging your head against the wall. This is a good time when the world feels like it's being shaken like a snow globe to stop and ask, what are my expectations when I came into this medicine? What is it like to navigate? What is it like to not have that privilege anymore? To not have that proximity? To have people make fun of me and this medicine, to have people tell me I'm different and weird. People say this about me and others just because we look different or speak different. Sad for them. It's really sad for them. But for those of us who've always been the minority, we know what waters we're swimming in. We know what it's like. We're not surprised. We also have a lot of insight. We also have a lot of perspective. Sometimes waking up to the waters you're swimming in is very uncomfortable. Sometimes you don't even know you're swimming in it until you've been dumped out on dry land. You used to be a fish and now you're being kicked out of the system. You're no longer following the ways and you're trying to breathe a different way. You're trying to get your feet underneath you and you're still clinging onto a system that doesn't want you. Again, I'm going through this healing, this reckoning, this realignment in my own life. One thing I will say and share is I don't know how to get any more detailed than keeping it very general and just asking a bunch of questions. But one thing I do want to say is I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised where we're at right now in this moment in February 2026. I'm not surprised we're going through this reckoning as a healthcare system, as a profession, and all of us personally. I'm not surprised that it feels like it's all going to crumble. I'm not surprised by the push and pull and lack of organization. We try to take a medicine that has its own consciousness, that has its own path, that is its own medicine in its own right. It didn't need to be called anything else besides medicine, but it did. It didn't need to be called Chinese or given an Asian name. It just was medicine, and it was practiced as medicine for thousands and thousands of years. We only call it Chinese medicine to differentiate it from the dominant culture medicine of the colonial powers that declared their medicine to be the dominant medicine. By doing so, we automatically othered Chinese medicine and all the other medicinal practices across the globe. That's the history we're living in now. For those of us living in the US, we know this country has not been nice to its immigrants. We're seeing that right now. Well, guess how Chinese medicine came to the US? Immigrants. And look where it is today. Has it changed? Absolutely. Has it evolved? Absolutely. I'm not saying that it shouldn't evolve or it shouldn't change. And yet I am saying that we have a big reckoning to do within our own history, our own lineages, our own understanding, our own privilege. I know we don't want to create harm. We took vows not to create harm, to do no harm. And we must be willing to look and see if and where we are creating harm, not just towards our patients. Where are we creating harm towards ourselves, towards our hearts, towards others, our own profession, and others' professions? If you're creating harm, you're creating harm. It comes back to that full alignment, that macro-microcosm alignment in all ways. We all want to be free. Every single person on this planet wants freedom. Freedom to express themselves freely, period. To let chi flow. We all know that. We practice that. We know it's the right thing. But it takes work. It takes hard work and self-reflection and self-care. The work to see our patterns. Which ones are serving us? Which ones are harming us? Which ones are harming others? And unless we do that work, we are all going to stay in this big, huge karmic wheel together. In the field of Chinese medicine, I've met some of the most intelligent, not just book intelligence. Yes, book intelligence, but also emotionally intelligent, socially intelligent, spiritually intelligent people in the world. This field has some of the most brilliant minds on the planet. Of course, this is my opinion, but it's also my perspective. It takes a certain brilliance. It takes a certain brilliance of intellect, of mind and heart to practice, to steward, to be of service to Chinese medicine. I don't see that role modeled in a lot of other professions at that degree. So why are we so afraid to be proud and stand up for what we do? And stand up for this medicine, to serve this medicine deeply. What I'm getting at is so many of us love this medicine. We share it with our patients, we share it with others, but when it comes to defending this medicine, to getting involved to make sure that this medicine can continue to stay Chinese medicine and not be cherry-picked, stolen, appropriated, people's mouths lock up. They zip up. Why? If you love this medicine so much, I am going to encourage you to move into civic leadership and to take action and to be of service to this medicine in a way that preserves, a way that honors, a way that makes amend of the tricky and precarious history of Chinese medicine in the United States. The history of Chinese medicine is so much older than, quote, when Nixon visited China. We need to look into it. You need to get to know it. Reckon with this medicine coming into the US through the hearts and hands and backs of immigrants who chose or were forced to move here. And that right to practice their culture and familial medicine was stripped from them unless they also had access to education and money and that privilege to keep practicing. There is a reckoning that needs to happen. There are other healthcare professions who continue to want and to use Chinese medicine, but they give it a different name. They make their own money off of it and rebrand it. Instead of going to school, instead of learning its history, instead of devoting themselves to learning, they just cherry pick and recreate. And again, that's their right in America. You're allowed to do that. Capitalism, right there. But is it the virtuous thing to do? To me, I think that can create and perpetuate cycles of harm, especially when not giving honor and reverence to the origins. Yes, the techniques might reduce suffering on the patient side, but it's not fully in alignment with reducing suffering on all sides. Let's be honest, we do it too. I see it in Chinese medicine and in the acupuncture field too. We go, you take another training, you integrate it into your practice. Some people repackage it, give it a new name, sell it, sell away. We're allowed to do that. That is the freedom and beauty of being in business in this country. And yet, do we give credit where credit is due? I would love to see more of us in the Chinese medicine and acupuncture field be of service to the medicine, to get involved, not just at the clinical and patient side, but in educating the public at large. I would love to see more of us learn and read about the history, the complicated, complex, messy history of Chinese medicine, not only in the United States, but also abroad. And for those who want to start learning about Chinese medicine in the United States, my favorite place to point people is Tyler Phan's PhD work on the history of acupuncture in the United States. It'll ruffle your feathers, it should, but it's a great place to start. We have a reckoning within Chinese medicine in the United States. We need to start tending to it, right? This reckoning is happening among other cultural practices, yoga, Ayurveda, Native American practices. It needs to happen. It is going to happen. What's your role in it? We need to lead with heart, your brilliance of intellect, of heart, of spirit. It needs to come into the world. Each one of us, we are just stardust, and no one on this planet breathes, eats, or expresses qi just like you. Right? That's from the Su Wen. That's part of Chinese medicine. Qi moves through you, me, everyone in a very particular way. You have committed to sharing this medicine with others in service to reducing patients' suffering and suffering in your community. How are you in alignment with that on all levels of your life and for this medicine? What I'm encouraging us, what I'm getting very curious and almost asking, is it possible for us to align our values of getting to the root of celebrating individualized care and diversity of the expression, not just for our patients, but for ourselves, for each other in this profession, and for all the medicines? The way we do it for our patients, can we do it for each other? Can we do it for ourselves? Right now, this podcast celebrates and nourishes the yin in a very young-centric world. And it may sound like I'm asking you to do more and put more on your plate at this time. But really, what I'm asking you to do is something very yin, is to do some inner reflection and get really truthy with the unease, with the discomfort, with the urgency. How can you be of service to this medicine? What does that look like for you? How can you be of service to your community? It may not even be in medicine. And for as many people as there are practicing, there are that many different answers to these questions. They're not going to be the same. If you find yourself deeply anxious right now in the state of the world that we're in, I think that's a very, very natural human reaction. Remember, action absorbs anxiety. It helps us to tend to the yin when we find purpose and work for the freedom and liberation of ourselves and others, especially others. Action can also mean deep reflection, to make amends with ourselves, to make amends with our place in this profession, to make amends with each other, to make amends so that we can be in alignment and our hearts can grow closer and we can knit this web back together in a more beautiful, in a more chi-flowing way. I believe that is the action that will absorb our anxiety. If you've taken this path in Chinese medicine, you've already become a rebel. You're already sticking out. Why are you trying to fit in? Just own it. You don't have to wear it on your sleeve, but just own it in your heart and be okay with it. People, patients, they're coming to you because your care is different. They want different. If they wanted the same, they'd go back to the same care they were getting. I hope this has resonated with at least one person out there listening. This truly is coming from a place of contemplation, of reflection, sharing perspective that I haven't heard anywhere else. If you are still listening, thank you. I know this has been a long one. I'm going to share a bunch of my favorite resources when it comes to how to make amends, how to bring ourselves into this moment of reconciliation with the world, the nation, our communities, our profession, and ourselves in the show notes. So go look for that in the show notes. Some of the show notes will include The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, of course, links to the Tao Te Ching. I have some favorite versions I'll share. So one of my favorite go-tos for leadership and conflict resolution is Dr. Donna Hicks and her books on dignity. Anyway, I'll put these all in the show notes, plus resources for the Year of the Horse. As I sign off, if you're still listening, thank you. I'd love to hear from you how this hit your heart. And coming full circle, if you have a different perspective on integrative medicine, on cultural practices, on Chinese medicine, and you're willing to share it with me, I'm opening the doors of Yinspired to you. If you would like to be considered to be a guest, send me an email at yinspiredpod@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. If you know someone who you think would be a great guest, link us up. Send us an email, CC them, CC me into the email, and make that introduction. Anyway, I'm really looking forward to continuing to share different perspectives on the messy truths of healing, medicine, and life, especially with those who are often ignored and told not to speak up. And if you're willing to join me, I'd love to have you on Yinspired as well. If you're still listening and you're not a subscriber, please consider becoming a subscriber. Go to yinspiredpod.com and it will take you straight to Substack, and that is where Yinspired lives. Here, you can subscribe for free and you'll receive every new episode straight to your inbox, plus access to transcripts, show notes, resources, and the opportunity to join the discussion. From my heart to yours, create a day you love.